You are the CEO of the Co-operative Bank. What differentiates the Co-operative Bank from the other?
I think really sum it up by that personal service. Recently we were awarded the highest of any bank in customer satisfaction. We hold that's really important.
Yeah.
So,
and is that third
year in a
year
row.
in a row? Yeah.
8 out of 9 years.
A three-peat.
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
many people can do
Three-peat,
that.
right? So yeah, that's really important to us.
Yeah.
Because it's rated by your customers as their views on are they satisfied? Are they very satisfied actually? So I grew up in a little place called Clive in Hawke's Bay. We started out in a little Watties rental house in Hawke's Bay, and then growing up, we didn't really have a lot. I do remember my dad being terrible with money. There's always food on the table, so we were fine, but painfully aware that we didn't really have any money. I often felt quite embarrassed about lack of means we had. Coming from that background does light a bit of a fire in you to want to be a better provider for your family and to get ahead. And Mum being a teacher, she had that thing about education being really important. So she instilled in us education was really important, but if you wanted to get ahead. Yep. So I think she instilled that sense that education was the way to go and the way to get forward.
What's the biggest money regret?
Yeah, I think there are one or two.
This is the Fresh Money Podcast.
74% of Pasifika, 56% of Māori feel unconfident or unsure when making financial decisions. This podcast is all about opening up the conversation of money and to help everyone get better at it. So if you can please like and subscribe, it's our promise to interview more people who can help and inspire you to become better with money. Please note that this podcast does not constitute financial advice. If you are needing financial advice, please consult a professional or get in touch and we can point you in the right direction. Talofa Mark.
Talofa Willie. Thanks.
Welcome to the Fresh Money Podcast. Awesome to have you down here in Otatahi, Christchurch. How are you?
Great, nice to be here. Bit of a delay with planes and disruptions this morning, but great to be here. Thanks, Willie.
Awesome. So you are the CEO of the Co-operative Bank.
That's right.
How long have you been in that role for?
Been there 2 years now as the Chief Exec for the Co-operative Bank. Nice. It's one of New Zealand's smallest banks, but we like to say small but mighty. It's, we kind of pride ourselves on being for the customer, owned by the customers. So yeah, it's been great.
Oh, awesome. We'll jump into the Co-operative Bank a bit later on.
Sure.
But tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Whereabouts would you grow up?
Yeah. Well, originally, actually, my family was from the UK. We were immigrants. When I was a tiny wee pup, the whole family picked up and came across here. Dad was a farm worker. Mum was a teacher, and they up sticks and came to New Zealand. I think probably.
Yeah. Why did they do that?
Probably for a better life for the kids. I think. I mean, they would have been what was probably called then working class English, and I think they saw that society and wanted a more equal society, a more egalitarian New Zealand probably appealed. Yes. So, and I think that probably did work out for them actually. Certainly more opportunity in New Zealand for kids growing up. So yeah, we came out and ended up in Hawke's Bay.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up in a little place called Clive in Hawke's Bay. Yes. Very modest upbringing there. In a little place. We started out in a little Watties rental house in Hawke's Bay, and then had a little place, ended up in a little place by the sea, right by the Tukituki River there. So.
Oh, nice. What part of the UK?
We were in the sort of rural UK. Mum was from the Isle of Wight, and Dad was from Worcestershire.
I see.
You might know the Worcestershire sauce.
Yes,
yeah, he was down from that part of the world, and they came out with three boys.
Wow.
Or all under the age of 3, sort of thing. They picked up and all came across. So yeah,
that's quite scary, risky.
Yeah, I think it's quite like a lot of people who come to New Zealand. They didn't probably have a lot, and came out by boat and came out for a new life. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's where we started.
You've got 2 brothers then?
2 brothers, yeah.
What number are you?
I'm the middle.
Oh, yep.
I'm the peacemaker, and one older, one younger. Yeah. The younger one's overseas, has lived in Switzerland now for a long time. And the other brother's in property, actually, and the middle too.
Oh, nice. And how did you get into banking?
Yeah, it's a long way.
Yeah, was there a long?
Yeah, far cry from being in little old Clive and Hawke's Bay to being CEO of a bank. And so I think probably growing up, we didn't really have a lot, and we probably had an upbringing where a little bit of a fire for wanting more, because there's always food on the table, so we were fine, but painfully aware that we didn't really have any money, and often felt quite embarrassed about the lack of means we had. You turn up for rugby training in cracked old second-hand boots that we bought from Selwyn's second-hand store in Clive there, and all your teammates would have these flash Adidas ones with the 3 stripes on. Yes. So really aware, kind of painfully aware that we didn't really have much growing up. But I think coming from that background does light a bit of a fire in you to want to be a better provider for your family and to get ahead. And Mum being a teacher, she had that thing about education being really important. So she instilled in us education was really important, but if you wanted to get ahead. So I think she instilled that sense that education was the way to go and the way to get forward. So I remember at a pretty young age, about 13, thinking, I didn't care if I got a bit of flack at school. I knew I needed to kind of nail that and get ahead in some education.
Nice.
So,
and were you naturally good at school, or was it Mum that?
Well, I think it's always a bit of both, isn't it? But I probably chose to do some work at school. But also, Dad he became a self-employed grower of tomatoes.
Oh, wow!
Which I just remember being a disastrous series of disasters.
Interesting.
And so there was often failed crops and things, but he'd often need a bit of help. In the sort of shed turned shop that he would sell them at, and me and my brothers were involved in that.
Oh, okay.
But
a bit of entrepreneurial flair.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, but certainly gave you the sort of we'd look after the shop. He'd give us a share of the takings if we ran the sort of, call it a shop, it was a shed, and we knew where he was sending his tomatoes off to auction and that kind of thing. And but he was a bit of a disaster when it came to managing money and finances and that sort of stuff.
So did your parents talk about money growing up, or was it?
Well, not really, but when I reflect back and I'm talking to you now, I actually think probably we kind of did in a way that we were talking about takings and that kind of thing, and the auction prices, what the fruit was sent off to Rotorua and got $7 a kilo for the fruit. You kind of knew that was a good deal. There probably was a bit of banter about that, but I do remember my dad being terrible with money, and he'd knock around his blue overalls and his nicotine stained fingers, and I remember at the kitchen table sorting his bills out. It'd be the gentle reminders. I don't know if they still have them these days, but the ones with a little sort of string tied around the finger, and then the final notices, and he'd sort of be sorting his way through the bills, which was the most overdue.
Yeah. Which one was the top priority?
And I remember thinking, God, that looks painful. But so he was pretty bad with money, and I think underlying all of that was he was a terrible alcoholic. And I think that's where a lot of the money went.
I see.
So that's anyone who's had some experience of that will know that it's usually got lots of consequences for a family dynamic. And definitely. I think that's where a lot of the money probably went.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think growing up, you sort of have that sense that if you wanted to be a better provider for your family, it kind of lit a bit of a fire for me to be a good dad, be a good provider, set a bit of direction. So, but there was no bank of mum and dad to fall back on. So it also meant that you had to be very self-sufficient. And, if you wanted a bike, I wanted a Healing 10-speed. I had to go and work for the Dutchman down the road who had a market garden, earn a bit of pocket money to go and buy a bike, and then, keep chipping away to save up the $277, I remember it was, for a Healing 10-speed then.
Wow. So a lot of those behaviours, you were learning kind of subconsciously,
I think so.
Or going, I don't want that.
I want this.
I want this. Yeah.
And you had to rely on your own effort, I think, was what I learnt. And if you wanted to go to university, I knew you had to fund it yourself.
So no student loan?
No. The fees and things were different back then too, but to be able to afford a hostel and all that type of thing. So I went off to work in a cardboard factory at night shift. Started at 4 in the afternoon through to 4 in the morning with a very hard case crew. Learned a lot about life from those guys, I can tell you.
You would have grew up quickly.
But it was the fastest way to get some cash to be able to afford to go to university.
Wow.
Because certainly there was no fallback there, so you really had to earn your way to do that.
Nice.
So, you learn the kind of value of money
Yep.
coming up from that environment.
Yeah.
And also desire to put yourself into a position where you could do better for your family in the future.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. And where did you go to? Did you end up going to uni? Where
Yeah,
did you study?
Yeah, so went to this great state school in Hawke's Bay called Havelock North High, which is a really
nice.
good co-educational school.
Yep.
And fond memories of growing up in Hawke's Bay. But went to Otago and studied down there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
And then later did a master's in business. And
great.
That probably set me on the path to the banking and business
Interesting.
line of work.
Yep.
I got a break with a firm called KPMG, which is one of the big four advisory firms, and was really lucky in that Wellington practice where I got an opportunity. There were a bunch of really clever partners, really good leaders, people that are quite well known now in the business community. Alan Isaac was the managing partner.
Oh, wow.
Had really good people like Ross Buckley, who's now involved in banking himself as the director, and Godfrey Boyce, also really well known in banking, who's since finished. But they were really strong, values-based leaders.
Wow. Okay.
They gave me a break as a green young grad.
Excellent.
When I was doing my MBA.
Yeah, yep. So you got a grad position?
Yeah,
Yep. Okay.
yeah. They sort of took me on. I was very green, but they took me on, and really, really strong values. And that was in the early 90s, and there was a recession back then, probably a worse recession than we are in now. Unemployment was about 10%.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, quite a tight time, and a lot of firms were cutting back. And for me, that's a real lesson. Those guys had the confidence to say, actually, we're going to do the opposite when everyone's cutting back. We're actually going to invest in people and grow their practice. So they invested in their people, grew their consulting practice, and came out of that and had a really strong period of growth after that. And that taught me a really valuable lesson about zigging when others zag, someone's doing the opposite. And having a bit of confidence to take a long-term view and invest for the future. And I think that served them really well. They had a really strong patch after that.
Because a lot of people say that, some successful businesses come out of really
Tougher
terrible times.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think for me, they were really strong in banking. They had some good banking clients and still do. In fact, they're still very strong in financial services. And so working with their clients at that time in banking, that gave me the entree into banking, if you like.
Great.
And did some really interesting projects in the banking field and thought that's a really interesting area.
Excellent.
So it was an evolution, really, to end up into working in
nice.
banking, and kind of never looked back into going down that direction after that.
Great. And where was your first, after KPMG, where did you go after that?
I worked in some of the big banks for a while.
Okay.
BNZ was one I worked in, and also ANZ. So you learnt your craft, if you like, from those bigger banks.
Yes.
But I think I ended up with Kiwi Bank for quite a period of time.
Okay.
And worked for a guy called Nick Aswick, who's now the CEO for Southern Cross. And that was a different experience. That was a New Zealand bank, challenger attitude, and I think that lit a little bit of a kind of a interest in being part of a New Zealand-based organisation.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun, bit of a roller coaster at times, but just after that global financial crisis, and a lot of the other banks were kind of closing the doors and not really lending, and Kiwi Bank really got in there and lent to people, stayed in the market and supported personal banking and supported people getting into homes, and so there was a good strong period of growth. And I think that for me was sort of showed again, tougher times sometimes about how you handle those situations.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. In terms of becoming the CEO of the Co-operative Bank, was 2021?
Yeah, so 2 years now.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
just at the end of 2021 and started in early 2022.
Cool.
So just been over 2 years in the role. And
Wow. What kind of drew you to the role?
yeah, well, I think the Co-operative Bank, it's a bank that is owned by its customers. So an opportunity to grow a bank that actually is owned by its customers and therefore its purpose is to give back to customers. It's not just about have bigger and bigger profit. It's actually about what can you do for your customers. So things like how well your customers are doing is actually a core part of what the bank is about, because you're owned by your customers.
Yeah. Can you explain owned by your customers?
So it's an interesting, isn't it? So I think New Zealanders get cooperatives because we're kind of used to them in the rural scene. So Fonterra is the biggest one.
Yes.
That's a cooperative because it's actually owned by the farmers, and we've got others in the like KPMG and the insurance area, so we're kind of used to those. And banking, less common, but essentially it's the same principle. You're owned by your customers, so in essence there's no offshore investor or shareholder. They are the owners of the bank,
Okay.
but they're also their customers. And it's not hard to become an owner, you just open an account.
Okay.
And by virtue
I see.
By virtue of opening an account, you become a member. And so you become a member and a shareholder just by opening an account. And
I did not know that.
You've got some extra rights. So you can vote on things like directors, but you don't have to. You can just operate your banking and go about your normal business.
Yep.
And then one thing we've done each year is we put some of our profits back to our customers by way of a rebate, by way of what we call a customer rebate.
Okay.
And that's just a symbol to say, we're acknowledging you as our owners and giving you something back each year.
Oh, nice.
We've just had our results. Well, so we're about to put $2.5 million back to customers.
Wow.
And it's not a huge amount when you break it down per customer, but it's like a dividend. It's like saying, actually, well, we're just acknowledging the importance of you as our owners.
And how do you qualify for that rebate? Is it
Basically, just by having some business with us.
Okay.
So we run some numbers based on how long have you been with us and how much business have you got with us, and share it out like that.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Easy. Well, kind of easy.
Yeah, it is. It is quite easy. It's actually a really simple business model. Really simple.
Almost sounds too simple.
Yeah, I like the fact that we're owned, and it always means
great.
that you have to put your customers first. A lot of people say that, but people don't believe it. That banks when they come. But when you're owned by your customers, you have to.
Yeah.
They are your owners, so we're accountable to them. I mean, that's who we're accountable for, not anyone else.
Nice. And as a CEO, what kind of qualities and skills do you need to lead a company, a business like?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think qualities is the right word, because I think in those positions, particularly for a bank, you have to have the right experience and qualifications. So no board can appoint a CEO for a bank that doesn't meet those kind of credentials. So that's a given.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that makes a difference is what are the qualities of what you're looking for in a CEO for a bank. And I think that's really important, that you get a fit for the right kind of qualities.
Okay.
And I think the things that I've learned is firstly knowing yourself, knowing who you are. I shared a little bit of my story. I'm very comfortable doing that these days.
Yeah,
Maybe early in my career I wasn't. But I think having a good understanding of yourself and being prepared to be a bit vulnerable, being prepared to listen to other people, I think that's a really important quality for a leader to have. And I think people sense that. They have a sense of if you're talking from a place of conviction and you know yourself and you believe what you say, versus if you're not so authentic. I think people picked it up a mile away.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a really important quality, that you know who you are. I went on a bit of professional development in about 2015.
Okay.
There's a place called Leadership New Zealand. Actually, Sina Wendt, who's very strong in the Pacific community, is the CEO of that. And it's a really interesting program, and it's about a year, and it really encourages people to understand your own qualities as a person and what you can contribute to society. So I think that was probably a bit of a turning point for me. The other quality I think is really important is building a good team around you.
Great.
And if I think back, like that team at KPMG or other really high-performing teams I've been a part of, I was part of a really strong team at Suncorp, for example. They were a good group of people, a really strong group of leaders.
Great.
And I think that's really important. So certainly for me at the Co-operative Bank, it's been a big part of it is building a really strong team around you. You look at any good CEO and you'll find they've got a good team around them.
Yeah.
You can't do anything alone.
True.
It's not about some kind of hero coming in and having a great vision all themselves. It's about building and creating with a team of people.
Great, awesome. Yeah. In your time, what's the biggest challenge you've faced so far as CEO?
I think the biggest challenges really are always the people ones, and I think where you have to part ways with someone, I think that's really the things I would always wrestle with, and because you've got to take a lot of care and respect in dealing with that situation. So where there's no longer the right fit, I think dealing with those situations, you've got to deal with them.
Yep.
And I think, but you've got to deal with it the right way, respectfully, and be manner enhancing for the people you're dealing with as well. You've got to be, I think, quite aware of that. But those are the really tricky situations. Those are the most difficult decisions.
Yep. And what's been your most, suppose, happiest moment as CEO so far?
Funnily enough, they're also the people ones, right?
Yeah, true.
I was recently at a event. We had one of our longest serving people, Hans, who was just retired from Palmerston North. I was at his farewell.
I think I saw that post, actually.
Yeah.
That was on LinkedIn.
It was,
Yeah.
that's right. So Hans has spent 47 years with us.
Wow.
And we had his farewell, which I toddled up to on a Friday, and it was just such a wonderful event. He could reflect on his career, 47 years with the same organisation, and he could hold his head high up in the community and say, actually, he'd really served that community well.
Awesome.
And at that event, he had his granddaughter, he had his sons, and he had his mother, who was 91, still going strong, and she was there all night. And I think you could sense the pride that here's someone who'd actually made a really good contribution in the community and who did a good job, served his entire career, and did that really well. And I think being part of that kind of family atmosphere, those are, for me, are real highlight moments.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
To be part of that atmosphere and to soak that in and to see the peer support for someone like that.
Yeah, great.
Those are moments that you find you know you're in the right place, and when you see that in a place like the Co-operative Bank and see that attitude among the people there, you go, yeah, that's a wonderful place to be. And I'm just about to go on roadshows now too. So here in Christchurch today, and starting in Christchurch, and we'll work our way through the South Island. I enjoy those things, getting out and seeing the team.
Yeah, cool.
It never feels like you get enough time to do that, but you do have to put that in the diary. And that's a lot of fun to go out and talk face to face with your team and to see what's happening and get their feedback.
Great.
Those are moments that I really enjoy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because I remember when I worked in the banks and the CEO would visit, it was actually really important to see them because you would, for whatever reason, think, oh, they're just over there, they're in the head office. But when you saw them, it meant a lot. Yeah.
And I think the communication is really important both ways. And so, you get a lot back, but also, having some time for some questions and answers and discussing where we're going for the future, that type of thing. So
great.
I'm looking forward to that, actually.
Cool. What differentiates the Co-operative Bank from the other banks?
I think really sum it up by that personal service. So recently we were awarded the highest of any bank in customer satisfaction.
Yeah, I did see that. Congratulations.
Yeah, cheers. And I think we hold that's really important being customer. So,
and is that third
year in a
row? In a row, yeah.
8 out of 9 years.
Wow.
It's a bit like Razor Robertson's track record with the Crusaders, isn't it?
Yes. Congratulations. Even a three-peat.
Not
many people can do that.
Three-peat, right? So, yeah, that's really important to us.
Yeah, cool.
Because it's rated by your customers as their views on, are they satisfied? Are they very satisfied, actually? And so we like to think of ourselves as New Zealand's most loved bank.
Yeah, great.
And that's a really important foundation for us. So that's a differentiator if you can maintain that, and you always got to keep working at that. Yes. You never take it for granted, and but like the Crusaders,
there's always someone.
There's
always someone nipping at your feet.
There's always someone having it. Yeah, so I think you've got to maintain that standard. But I think we've established a good gap over the competition. But again, keeping at that, and there's lots of ways to do that. It's how you greet a customer, how you make them feel when they walk in, or how they are served by you. What offers we give them, the services, the products, how we price consistently, the channels, the digital channels we offer, and all of those things are the points that make that up. So it's hard to maintain that all the time, but that's the challenge. And if you do make a mistake, to fix it really quickly. So that's how we try and differentiate, as being really top in service. We can't compete on size or scale, but we can compete on service.
Nice.
And we compete on personalised service as well. So give them that nice personal touch. And making sure we do give that customers that great experience.
Excellent.
That's what we aim to do.
You touched on digital. As a mortgage advisor, I send a lot of customers to the Co-operative Bank.
Yeah.
And what they comment on is how easy it is to open a bank account via the digital channels.
Yeah.
Because for a while, the opening a bank account was almost harder than getting a home loan approved.
Yeah, and I think people still probably think that it's harder than it is. So it's really easy now, and you can do it digitally, and people like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Is that one of your
Yeah,
I suppose values of making it easier.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, banking should be easy, right? Particularly we're a retail-focused bank, so retail bank should be the easiest form. So we do want to make it easy and convenient for people, so they can get on with doing other things that they want to do in their life.
Yeah.
But making that experience for them, whether it's opening an app, opening an account, transferring a mortgage across, all of those things should be nice and simple. So things like refixing your mortgage, putting that out on the app, being able to do that online quickly, putting some discounts there on the app that people can take if they are loyal customers, that sort of thing. So putting all of that into the digital is really important because people expect that now.
Yep.
Expectations
are quite high now, isn't it?
And the great thing today is the technology available. You can, even as a smaller bank, you can actually have really good digital channels. So we've got a good rated app, and actually that came through in some of those satisfaction ratings. Good internet banking, good mobile app, they all are really important to people. Cool. But also they're on the call or there if they do need to pop into a, those are all available for customers.
Great.
Yeah, but that's important.
I had some Pacifica customers come through, and they, culturally, we live slightly different. Sometimes or often we live with our grandparents or aunties and uncles, cousins, if not in the same house, very close to each other, next door or down the road. And I submitted an application, and I explained all of that. And the details, hey, this is very cultural. And it got approved. Through you guys. Is that part of who the cooperative bank is, understanding these certain factors, if we present it in that way? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great example of what we call personalised service, where taking the time to understand the situation, hearing from the customers, making sure that's covered in the application, making sure we've got those details to understand that and put that through. And I think there have been situations like that where we've been able to help customers where others perhaps might not have. In fact, we've just produced our annual report, and we've actually captured some of those customer stories and put them in there.
Yeah, well, that really very one was in there. Yeah, which is great.
And I really like to see that. That gives us, that's what we're about.
Great.
And the cooperative bank actually came out of what was called the PSAS, almost coming to 100 years.
Yes.
And
wow.
So it started in 1928.
I do remember PSAS.
Yeah, and if you think about then that was really for the kind of middle New Zealand that didn't always find getting access to credit easy. So nurses, teachers, that type of middle New Zealand really. And so that's always been part of our philosophy, to actually be there for customers. So for those customers who not necessarily the highest of income, but still good, backbone of New Zealand type people, then that was part of our genesis of who we supported. So it's really good to see that we are supporting extended families like that, different communities. And that cooperative nature, I think, that's part of who we are, right?
Yeah,
so that does gel well. We also have what I call New Zealanders, which we welcome as well. There are some communities, and for example, one springs to mind is the Filipino community, and we've got some people here locally, for example. They often arrive as a family. They establish themselves. They want to, they get into a work and they want to start building that family support, and they might start getting set up for work with some personal lending, and they'll then grow into a home loan.
That's right.
Might start putting some KiwiSaver aside, and so it's that whole relationship with the family, and then they bring other family members in and that type of thing. And I think we see a lot of that word of mouth, in particular communities, that if word gets around that you are there to support those communities, then they will refer their friends and family to come and see us. And I think that's part of our growth. That's part of where we see opportunity too, to actually continue to support particular communities. We sort of sum that up as our brand, as the Cooperative Bank, being for community-minded Kiwis.
Great.
So community-minded Kiwis are kind of who we try and target. It's a bit of what we call a psychographic, as opposed to a particular demographic, age or group or ethnicity or anything. But it's basically people who've got that vibe, that attitude. That's who we attract and who we can attract over other banks. When they look at the Cooperative Bank and what we stand for, we'll appeal more to those sort of people.
Okay, nice. In terms of innovation, going forward, how is the Cooperative Bank looking to innovate?
Yeah, a really interesting question, because I think previously banks used to innovate by trying to come up with a new product and throwing it out there, and seeing how it lands.
Yeah.
I see Flybys is closing there. That used to be a product.
Yeah, I see that.
It used to be something that people would put out and add some Flybys points to a line or something. But these days it's about making it simpler and easier for customers. So it's actually about simplifying products, I think, for people and helping the process and making the experience a good one. So more and more it's about how can you innovate in the experience and make it simpler and easier for people. How can you take out the paperwork? How can you capture information easily for people? And so that's the opportunity, I think, for us. And we're investing in some of our banking systems to do that.
Great.
Particularly our core banking system, so it can enable that way to offer other services by being slick and seamless for people. Behind the scenes, it's about us investing in those technology systems, but for the customer, it should just make life easier.
Gotcha.
It also makes it easier for us to innovate more quickly,
Okay.
so that we can go to market really quickly with, if we do want to do a particular package or co-own for a particular customer or a different type of lending, for example, we could do that more easily with that flexibility when we've got the platform to do that. So that's a big investment plan for us. And we see that as being critical to be able to keep innovating for the future.
Great.
And probably a once-in-a-generational investment for us to make. So we're in the process now of doing the business case around that.
Oh, wow.
All the plans for that, and we've got to do that really carefully.
Nice.
Because we are a small bank, we've got to make sure we pick the right pathways forward. But looking forward to that. That's
Awesome. That's great to hear.
interesting project on the go, and one that'll set us up well for the next 100 years.
Nice. In terms of open banking, I hear, might have just happened the other day, or there was a deadline for some of the banks.
Yeah.
Is the Co-operative Bank taking part in that?
Yeah, we are. And I think we're sort of got a really realistic view of open banking. So for people who are not close to this, it's basically you as a customer could give permission to say you can share your banking data. Like if you're with a big bank, for example, and you want someone else to see the data, you can allow someone permissions to use that data.
Yes.
And so for us, we're trying to look for, well, how would that benefit a customer? So again, we're always looking for the customer angle. And so you could do a lot of work at the bank end, but actually what's the customer solution we're looking for? So one of the things I think, one of the things I think that open banking could do like that is a lot of people have things in different places. You might have your KiwiSaver somewhere else, you might have your bank, you might have your mortgage. So get a total view of that and understand your own financial position in one place. That could be allowed by open banking. So that's the sort of value we see in a more consolidated view of all of your business, where your things are. And you might be a couple, or you might be an extended, having the ability to kind of consolidate information
Bring
like that.
it all into one.
With your permission. That's the sort of service that could be of value. So we're having a look at that, and we see some value in participating in that. But I think we want to look for the application for the customer, not just the behind the scenes data. We actually want to say how could it look for a customer, what's the value in that. Also, it might help other players, other challenges, startups or technology players who want to provide some different services that can also allow that, because they can access that other bank data as well. But you've got to be really careful about security, of course. I mean, we all hear about the scams, and scams are on the rise. So
I was just going to say, it seems to be ramping up all these scams.
Totally. And, we're participating in also at the same time the fraud centre, fraud centre for New Zealand, which is just getting off the ground. And that's really important to make sure that the data is protected, because there's a lot of bad actors out there trying to get hold of the data. So you've got to make sure whoever you're partnering with sharing information has got to be done with customer permissions and done securely in a safe way. Because there's always someone trying to crack it, trying to break in, and phishing scams that are going after the banks. And then from the customer end, people are constantly harassing people. And one bit of Steph, who was just never do anything with someone that's coming through an unsolicited call or an unsolicited email.
I was going to say, what's your... is it always double check, call them, see what is this?
Totally.
In turn, when it comes to scams, when you're getting texts and emails.
I'd go even further. If you get a random call from someone, I wouldn't even go there. Like some of these stories you hear about people transferring large amounts of money in response to a call, just don't do it.
Wow.
Never do it. I think when you're looking at making investment decisions, it should come from you and talking to an advisor or your banker. Never just respond to a random call or email coming in from someone.
Yeah, because you need, like, the technology out there now, AI is insane in how they can create voices and
pretend to be from somewhere and all that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So there's a lot of that out there. So be really careful about that. I think never part with your money unless you know where it's going. And the bank's got a role to play here too, and there's lots of things that they're investing in to help protect customers as well. But it's probably a two-way street.
Yes. How does the cooperative bank determine interest rates? That's a lot. I get a lot of those questions.
Well, there's two things really. I think one is the market view. So we're always looking at where's the market, and we try and be a bit under the median. So we try and be really competitive on pricing.
I know for a lot of first home buyers, you guys will be the best in the market.
That's right, and we offer a bit of a first home buyers discount there as well, which is really good. That's a market we want to be in.
Right.
And I think it helps people to know where do you want to be, where's your appetite to lend, and so we're really into first home buyers. So that's one view. Take a look at the external market and see where it's at. Where can you be competitive? And sometimes you like to offer a sharper deal than others, that type of thing. So that's all good fun. And then we also look at our costs, and it gets a bit technical. But basically, if you think about where deposits are and where lending is, that's the balance you're always looking. So we look at that total interest margin, and so what's enough to make a reasonable, steady, consistent margin. We make a lower return than the bigger banks, so we have a lower return on equity. So we're looking just to make a fair, just to be sustainable and strong, meet that Reserve Bank requirements and that sort of thing. But basically, just make a good fair return back to our customers, and then if we have any extra, we pay it back to customers. So those are the two things essentially. What are the costs that you have, largely through what you pay depositors? What's what we call cost of funding? And then
because so you get money in from deposits, and then you lend it to people to buy their homes at a different rate.
That's right.
Does that sound right?
So you can get a deposit for sort of around that 6% mark, depending on the term and that type of thing. And then we can lend it out. We might be lending it at 699 for 1 year, which is where it's at right today. It's a really popular term at the moment. So you can see it's not a huge gap between the two, and then there's all sorts of other products as well, and you put all that into the mix to work out your total cost of funding, and then you lend it out to people. The Reserve Bank sets signals with the official cash rate, and so that's sort of like the overnight rate, if you like, and that sets a benchmark. And when that moves, it sends a signal to markets to move. So that's the other thing you look at.
In terms of a first home buyer buying their first home, what would your best tip to them be?
I think work out what you can afford first. I think the really important thing with property and getting to your first home is it's a good long-term play, but don't look to me about making a quick buck. I think, and so that means just be able to service what you borrow. And I think that's the most critical thing. So either sit down with your banker or your advisor and work out what's the right sort of amount that I can afford, and then go looking and do your homework. And I think we are in a bit of a buyer's market, so buyers can do their checks. Don't feel under pressure. Offer what you can afford, and be confident in that. But certainly, myself and my wife, we got into property early, and that served us well. And I think we would encourage people to do that. I mean, I don't think property's that's something you should look to try and make a quick buck on. But I think over the long term, it's a good thing to do. And I think if you're taking that longer term view, it's a pretty safe bet. When you had markets that were, the property market post that pandemic was on a bit of a rush and 20-30% rises, that sort of thing. And I think if you are always betting on a rising market, that can be dangerous. But if you're comfortable buying a property and can hang in there and keep servicing it, then it'll be right. It'll come right. So that's my probably steer without giving any personal advice. Just a general sense.
Great. No, that's really good. Really good. Let's go personal finances. Do you consider yourself good with money?
I think I'm good with making the right kind of investment decisions.
Nice.
Maybe not so good on the spending.
What do you spend on? Is it a coffee here and there?
I'm afraid I do like my coffee.
I love a good coffee.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
And probably my weakness is bikes.
Oh.
Push bikes. Yeah.
Okay.
Road bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly come under the wife's scrutiny occasionally. Probably my weakness.
Nice.
But I think, made some good decisions, and probably a long time ago, I think. Also, investing in KiwiSaver and growth funds at an early stage, I think.
Oh, great.
And that's a good thing to be into.
Yes.
Making sure your contributions are at a good level.
Yep.
That pays back over the long term as well.
Yeah.
So those things I think have served well, Barry. Getting in, buying property, what you can afford, but investing in, especially early in life.
Yep.
And getting into saving. Saving for the long term. Like that KiwiSaver is a great long term savings.
Yeah, it is. So it's generally about time, how long you're in the market.
The sooner you start,
Yeah.
right? And we're encouraging our kids. They've got KiwiSaver accounts. It doesn't matter if it's however small it is. Get started.
Great.
And that compounding effect over the long run, it pays back.
Does.
And so that's really important.
Nice.
And it may not feel a lot at the time, but actually, when you look back, just that starting that process, and it builds and builds and builds.
Slow and steady, isn't it?
There's a lot to be said for that. So I think managed funds are a good bet. I think Kiwis like to think we can have a dabble in our own sort of stock picks next. I think and you might win, you might lose, but
We all want to be Warren Buffett, don't we?
we do. But I think there are experts out there, and I think they're a lot more accessible than people realise. And so I think managed funds are good. They're a good asset class to be looking at, and you don't have to be in KiwiSaver. You can have a lot of those providers will have funds that mirror KiwiSaver, but you've got more flexibility. Personally, we set up an education fund for the kids.
Oh, wow.
A few years back, and
Great.
that's you put a bit aside for their education, that type of thing. So that's in a growth fund, but we got access to that any time. We can just pull money out of that if
That's
we
a
need
great
to.
idea, actually.
So things like that, I think, are good things to have a look at. And the bank deposits, I mean, that's probably the thing at the moment. We talk about higher rates, and borrowers are always the big, but actually you can get good bank deposit at the moment.
Yeah,
risk-free,
that's
basically. It's a pretty good level of security with bank deposits. And you can get a 6% return. So there's some good options. And personally, I have a little bit in the bank deposit side to balance that out. I think that's quite handy to have as well.
You've got to have that access to it.
Yeah, you've got that access, and that can be either on call or it can be for a term, but that's got flexibility for you as well.
Nice. You mentioned your kids before. Did you talk to them about money growing up? And how early did you guys talk to them?
I think it's really healthy to talk about. I mean, I think Kiwis aren't good about talking about money.
Yeah.
And, some communities particularly so, like it's a bit of a...
Definitely.
Some it's a bit of a taboo subject, but I think it's really healthy. We did in our family talk about money.
Great.
I don't know when, but it was pretty early on.
Yep.
I mean, the kids were kind of naturally a bit curious about what you earn.
Yeah.
We would tell them that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you've just got to, we used to have the old circle of trust comment.
Yeah.
We'd say, this is family only.
For us.
This is just for us. But we'd have a chat about it. I think around the dinner table for us worked really well.
Nice.
And we would be open about that. And also for the kids, what professions were well paying or not well paying, and what came with that, what were some of the stresses and other things that came with those decisions.
Yep.
But we'd have that discussion with them about some of their choices and what our experience was and what decisions we'd made and what we earned and what we'd spent, what we bought a house for, that type of thing. We'd share that. In fact,
cool.
My son would often be involved in like a car or something. He would be interested in them, so he would say, "Well, this is a good deal, that's not a good deal," or I think having those conversations.
Nice, having that solid debate at the dinner table.
For us, it was a private thing, so it was always within the context of just the family, and just making that really clear to them. That wasn't for sharing with friends.
Yeah. Sure.
And so it was a bit of a joke about, it was the Fockers movie with the Circle of Trust. It was always the flavour just to remind people that it was
cool.
just for our ears.
Nice.
Yeah, but I think I'd really encourage that. I think it helps the financial literacy of the family, of the kids, to be part of that. It's also they've also got views and thoughts too. About
and because where else are they going to question or understand it?
Yeah, they're only going, and there's not much in the schools on it either.
No.
So I think that's a really useful thing to be doing with the kids.
Great. And it's such a safe environment.
Totally.
And I believe that in the home is where you're kind of the first teacher to your kids, and should be.
Absolutely.
And the rest is from schooling and things like that. So, awesome.
Don't leave it up to their mates. Eh?
Yeah. They're the last in line. In terms of budgeting as a family, who looks after that? Is it a team thing?
Oh, no, it's definitely my wife.
Okay.
She's the budgeter.
Nice.
And she's an accountant, so that helps.
There we go.
And
so the accountant overrides the banker?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. She's the one who keeps an eye on where the money's going. She sets the sort of household grocery budget, that kind of thing, and
nice.
has a different account for that, so she tracks that type of thing.
Oh, perfect.
One of the tips she uses. Everyone's different. Everyone's got their own ways of doing that.
Yes.
But I think actually having someone playing that role is really helpful, and you might decide who's going to play that role.
Yes.
It's useful if someone does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And occasionally the wife will audit us. She'll go through and see how much have I spent on lunch and coffee. That's really painful, but she does a really good job of just keeping track of things, and I think that's helpful.
We joke about it, but I think it's extremely helpful.
It's totally working that out, and I think that's important for people to know where their money is going and what you're spending your money on.
Yep.
It's probably not my strength, but certainly someone in the family does, and my wife Jo picks that up.
Nice. How do you make important financial decisions?
Always joint. Everything we do is joint.
Great.
Big ones will often involve the kids as well.
Say you're moving house type thing?
Yeah, that's right.
Involved in the
exactly.
have a conversation? Yeah.
And they're in their early 20s now, so they've got things to add and perspectives to add. And, but I also think for us, what's worked for us has been all our financial details have all been joint. All our accounts are joint. The property's all in joint. So everything is shared in terms of an understanding and visibility, and make sure that we're all across that. And any big decisions we would talk about. Maybe not always like the fact that I'm going to buy a bike, but at least
we're still
knows
going to talk about it.
at least knows it's coming. So that's
nice.
I think having that discussion, particularly as a family unit, I think is healthy. To make good decisions and then go forward. Not always in 100% agreement, but I can live with that, or that works.
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit of give and take.
Yeah.
What's the biggest money regret you've made, or you have?
Yeah, I think there are one or two. I think the John Key once said that he was a trader in his early background before he became Prime Minister. But I heard him once say that people often hang on to bad assets for too long or get rid of good assets too quickly.
Gotcha.
And I got transferred at one point from Auckland to work in the South Island in Dunedin. And we had a little villa in quite a small modest villa in Herne Bay in Auckland. Ooh. And property was at the time we bought was pretty flat. But it was certainly on a bit of an up.
Yes.
And we thought, we'll take the gain. But in hindsight, we should have held it a lot longer because it kept on going up and up and up.
Yes, on the way.
The good thing is we bought well,
nice.
But I think sometimes hanging on to those good assets for longer is sometimes a smart play. And then probably the other thing is sometimes there are opportunities that you didn't do that you, in hindsight, you go, should have done that. So those are probably the ones, the regrets.
And obviously there's bikes, but what else do you enjoy spending money on? Or is it mainly bikes?
No, I think the thing I really enjoy in terms of what we spend and prioritise, I think the family time and experiences together.
Yeah, cool.
We just recently had our 25th wedding anniversary, bring the kids with us. We went to Australia. I think
nice. Congratulations.
Family experiences. I mean, cool. they are. When I look back, and we've done some locally here too, just around the country. Whether it's Milford Sound or Tasman, some of those great walks, which actually not that expensive. Really good value. Just got to book early with those. With docs.
High demand for those.
But those are those family experiences where I like. Those are the really enjoyable ways to spend your money and to have a nice meal with the kids and family and those sort of experiences. Cool. I think that's where I I like to spend our
Yeah,
money.
awesome.
Less about things, more about experiences, I think.
Great, I like that. If you weren't in banking, what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, that's a tough one. Originally, when I went to Dunedin, I had the idea of working in the medical field.
Oh,
So banking a long way from that.
yeah.
But and so my original degree was in psychology. So if I had my time again, I probably would have been more motivated and worked harder at that. But I've enjoyed where I've ended. So
Nice.
I think probably something in that type of profession would have been a very different career. But my son's down in Otago. He's doing the third year of med school down there.
Oh, wow.
And I think that looks like a career that's very people orientated, where you're providing a really critical service for people.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, banking's been that. It's a really essential service for people.
Definitely.
And I think it can help people with aspiration to get ahead. So working in something like the Co-operative Bank that's got that purpose to help people grow and help them realise their dreams and aspirations, that's a rewarding career. So, so I think those are rewarding careers.
Great, very cool. And in terms of the Co-operative Bank, what are your future aspirations for the Co-operative Bank?
Well, we really want to keep on growing, and I think it's we've had some good growth recently, particularly the last couple of years, and that's been great to see. But I think being the most loved bank, really winning in that customer area, doing things that give value back to customers, we can find more and more ways to do that and stand out in that area and invest for the future in our people and our systems to be able to deliver that, but always with our eye to what value it gives back to the customer. So if we can grow and be doing that and reinvesting back for customers, that's the direction for us. And I see a really good opportunity. I think the time is right for a New Zealand-based bank to do that and to make its mark. So, I came here to build a bank for the future that does that, and I think there's plenty of opportunity to do that and make some inroads in the market. And I think the time's right. I think people are looking for a better way to bank. They're looking for a bank that behaves the right way and treats them the right way and treats them fairly and has got values and doesn't think of themselves as self-important but actually is there to serve. I think there's a role to play there. So being part of that and grow that's what I'd like to see.
Great. And finally, what does wealth look like to you? And it can be holistic.
I think wealth should be holistic. I think wealth is something that for me it's about having the for me goes right back to my roots. Being able to provide for family is to me being able to help the family make their choices and feel supported and have that stability behind them and be in a place where they can be encouraged to take on their dreams. That for me is the happiest times, and where you feel that you're in a position to provide and support. Right back from what I didn't have probably as a kid growing up, is what probably my own personal purpose has been. And so being able to do that, being in a position to do that, I get a kick out of that. And encouraging the kids to be able to feel supported and have a family that's got some security about it and that's got a strong centre to it.
Nice.
With mum and dad that care and kids that can feel proud of mum and dad, and likewise that we feel really proud of them doing their thing in life. That to me is wealth, and also having the balance and time to spend with them. And I think some other places of work, and there was a period in time, probably less now, people are more conscious of that balance and being able to spend time with your family, but also work hard, but also be able to spend time when it matters and be there when it matters for your family.
Great.
That's wealth to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Willie. It's been great to be here.
Yeah, it's been awesome having you. I really appreciate you coming on the Fresh Money podcast.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Willie. And if you have more of those friends and whānau that need support, then give us a yell. We're always here for you.
Yep. Sounds great.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.